into. And that can be adapted to what you got. You know, if you were in a place that didn't have too many trees, you could do a plow point or, you know, any other variation of a shelter like that. This is just the one that we choose to teach people. And these are what we call small. I'll see if I can get them to shake out of these bags. Probably just going to have to tear them apart. But a lot of times when we put them on our navigation course at class, students are required to collect a 55-gallon drum full of these, busting out the top, or we send them back out to collect more. And you got to collect a Tinder Bundle as well, which I'll bust that out here in a minute. Talk a little bit more about that. I do appreciate you letting me use those bags. That's going to come in handy for sure. What's that? Yeah, right. This is the tender part of this. This is a tender bag that I carry with me. Stitch Gear Outfitters makes a shameless plug on that one, but it really is a great little bag, and I enjoy carrying it a lot. And I have plenty of good stuff in there. I have the tulip poplar bark that I collected from here. That's a river birch that I already had in there, and I also have a stick of fat wood, which if you're in an area with fat wood, it's almost like cheating. This stuff is awesome. You can, if you can't get a fire started with that, go back home. I don't know, like, I mean, it's almost like gasoline. I think the only thing that may be better than that or even comparable is probably paper birch, and we don't have that here, so that's how that goes. I like to do on the fire setup for this, it's kind of, I don't know, some people call it a pyramid. I don't even know if there's an official name for it that I've heard. I just kind of call it an emergency fire or something like that. But kind of stack up those sticks in a back where you're starting your wall and you come in almost to make a little cave. Some of you may recognize this from some of Dave Canterbury's videos or something like that. It's a really great method. It makes a drafting effect. There's a scientific word or a scientific sounding word that goes along with that, but I don't recall it right now, and which is one of the reasons why I don't use it, because you know, you get into these complicated terms and stuff like that. If you've ever been in a plant medicine class where somebody wanted to start talking about the subclass and the, you know, the species and blah blah blah, it gets really confusing. You know, it's like, what does it look like? What does it do? That's what I need to know. Like, I don't I don't need all that extra information. Kind of like to keep it about 80-20, as we say.
The camera, what you got in your bundle, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm going to use the whole thing, actually. And then the answer to that, I mean, people will talk about, you know, resource conservation and stuff like that. I mean, if you're really in an emergency scenario, I'm using all of it. Like, I want it now. You know, I'll collect the other stuff after I get comfortable. In the reference to the Tinder Bundle, we like to say as big as your head or you're dead. So you really want something very substantial as far as that goes, like a good sized Tinder Bundle collect, or bird's nest as it were, as far as that goes. Which I found this here. There's some really good silver poplar sources back there when you get in that. And I have my birch bark as far as that goes. And if it got real crazy, I might use that stick of fat wood, but I'd say this is going to be all right. Get our lid off of our water bottle. And once we get this going, you are more than welcome to come up and kind of see how fast this happens. I'm hoping it's going to be, I've seen them go off in, you know, as little as 2 minutes to a rolling boil. As far, you know, and people, you know, well, it takes a while to cook off. Put the lid back on it, stick it to string. Like, you're good in about 10 minutes. At least in my personal experience, that's what I usually do once I get it boiled. Which I carry a Sawyer squeeze now, so I don't do this very often. But when I first got into it, that was, you know, I wanted to practice it and get it dialed in. So it's a cool thing to do. It's a lot of fun. But if you have to do it for like an extended period of time, you'll get tired of boiling water after a while. And a word on the Sawyers there, I tried the Mini for a little while. It clogs up really, really fast and gets slow. I highly recommend just the basic squeeze if you're into water filters and stuff like that. I know some people are worried about the fact that they don't do viruses and they don't do heavy metals. Well, I mean, you know, get a general idea where your water source is coming up. And I mean, we're not in Africa here. We don't really have that big a problem. So, you know, it's worked just fine. I've never gotten sick using mine. And I am going to do this with a paraseam rod, so it's a real bushcraft fire. Come on, buddy. Help me out here. You like to get that Tinder Bundle ignited before I put my bottle in.
Turn on the timer, somebody.
Yeah, right. See if we can do it in 15 minutes. I'll let that sit for a second until everything kind of gets to going. And you can manipulate it while you're doing it. Just be careful not to knock over your water bottle. Seen that happen a bunch of times. I almost done it myself a bunch of times. So.
Okay, Mike, while you're waiting to.
Yeah, right.
Why is the back of the shelter orange?
Because I've dressed like a secret squirrel a lot when I go out, so I like having something that I could use as a signaling device with me.
That's the thing. If you're actually trying to get gear to take, put in your car or something for actual emergency, something like that that's that big and that orange can easily be seen at long range, especially by aircraft flying over.
Yeah.
And so if you're honestly setting up something because you're going to be going in those places, a bright orange panel like that is a big advantage. That's the reason they put orange on one side. The shiny on this side is for light reflection and heat reflection. In our deep south, when the sun is beating down on you, put the orange to the inside and the shiny to the out to help cool it off a little bit in there.
Absolutely. And then you'll kind of take the rest of what you've got. That's why we collect so much, to make sure that you have a substantial amount of work to get this done. When we have people in class who are like, oh, I'm going to get sticks in my bottle, I'm going to get ashes in my bottle. Well, suck it up, buttercup, you're going to die. So, you know, you need to get that. And
Suck it up,
yeah, right. Well, I mean,
like that.
you know, yeah, well, and actually, I mean, getting charcoal in your bottle, there's nothing wrong with that. Just drink it down. It's, you know, if you got a stomach thing going on, that's going to suck up, you know, any bacteria or maybe bad stuff you got going on in there. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's perfectly sanitary, not going to kill you. Like, activated charcoal is far superior to that, but I mean, in a pinch, you can totally use charcoal for stuff like that, you know. Anybody who's ever known anybody that had to have their stomach pumped or something like that, that's what they use, activated charcoal. So, like I say, not as effective, but same concept. Well, like I say, if y'all want to, you know, I mean, it should boil here in a few minutes.
That's all right, I'm not going to heat
Yeah, no, you're fine, you're fine. And as all this happens, you know, those heat waves are going into that and creating a little microclimate. Say if you had a painter's drop cloth wig, you throw it over the top of that. I have actually slept in shelters like this before in weather in the teens, and it is awesome.
Would you recommend the wind wall on the other side of the fire?
What's that? Oh, the reflector wall? In like a long term, after I got this going, me personally, I like the Siberian log fire. Yeah, and it just shoots heat out the front. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with building a reflector wall. I'm real big into the calorie conservation. I've had to build primitive shelters and stuff like that before, and I mean, they're like, oh, you could do this. Yeah, you could, but it takes, you know, I think the one that I built in my first emergency class took me about 6 or 7 hours to actually get that, you know, what is it, like 4 feet of compressed material over the top of it. And we actually dumped the bucket over the top of it to make sure it was waterproof and all that. But that is calorie intensive, you know, like if you, I don't know, this and carrying some food with me is much easier than doing all that. I mean.
All right, now how are you going to get that hot water bottle out of that fire?
Bandana. I've got this little leather thing there. So there are times when I carry a little thing to stick down in between it and that. But that's a very good question, Blackie. That's kind of, you know, you could always do the kind of the pot hook thing. Find you a curved branch and that, stick it in there, and kind of do that. I should have made one of those. That would have been a good idea.
But that's the thing. In the past, when we would boil our water and quite often it would be in canteen cups, of course, they would handle.
Mm-hmm.
And when we used other things to boil our water in, we always had to have something because the reason we were boiling it was we were out of water.
Yeah.
It was hot, and we were trying to purify water to go put it in the stream like you're talking about. We didn't have these fancy water bottles like we have today. And so we carried a pair of needle nose pliers today. Everybody carries Leatherman. That's great. Just grab it and go sit it. Go ahead and prepare your place on the edge of the water in the sand or something where you can come back and slowly ease it in. Don't burn it and cool yourself off.
And just to say that has been boiling for probably about a minute now. It's there. Yeah. Well, I mean, you look, your shelter, your clean water, you got fire. You're good to go.
And you're ready to catch the forest on fire.
Yeah, right.
You got your fire there.
Yeah. Should have built my fire ring, I guess. But I mean, that's pretty much my demonstration of it. I mean, any questions or anybody want to see any of these knots? Like I said, I'll be more than happy to work with anybody one-on-one. Yeah, right on.
What knife did you say you used on the?
There's a Siberian Hitch on this side. And the reason that we do this, I don't know if I mentioned that or not, in this particular setup, in some of our later classes, we do a escape and evasion type stuff, you know, where you get ambushed and you have to bail out quickly. And that's just a quick pull. That's just a quick 2 pulls. Then you're just pulling your stakes and going. So it's very easy up and down. And that's why we like it.
What would you say the ideal distance between your fire and your length?
Very good point on that one. For every, I think it's 3 feet, which is about a step average for most people. You know, everybody's got a different light. You're losing about 25% of your heat from your fire. So we like to about a step, maybe a step and a half, depending on, you know, what's going on around you. You know, I mean, if you're dealing with, you know, colder temperatures, hotter temperatures, you know, you can kind of gauge that. I mean, experiment with this stuff. See where you're at on that as far as, and, you know, prove it to yourself. Like, because, I mean, a lot of this stuff is just kind of general. I mean, 25%, well, how big's the fire? How much wood do you have in there? Like, what is 25%? But, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. For about every step, you're losing about 25% of your heat. We have to keep it pretty close as far as that. I mean, you know, fairly close. Yeah. Oh yeah, I mean, it happens very quickly. And I mean, you know, there wasn't anything wrong with that water before I put it in that bottle. But I mean, if you were collecting it from a sketchy source or whatever. Yeah. Well, I mean, which, you know, like we were talking about the 72-hour scenario. Like, most of those waterborne illnesses really don't take effect for like 48 hours, a little bit longer than that. So I mean, if it came to the point where you just couldn't get a fire going for whatever reason and you were at risk of dehydration, drink it. They're just going to pop you a couple antibiotics when you get back home and you'll be fine. It's not as, you know, I mean, it's not hard.
Technology.
Yeah, I mean, you're good to go. You know, you might get a little loose bowels or whatever when you get back home and that, but it's not gonna, you know, it's not as bad. In a modern scenario, yeah.
That is best down in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, I mean, you run into that with a desert survival. You know, people are like, "Well, should I drink it? Should I not?" Well, you're going to die of dehydration. So, some chance is better than none. You know, can you get an extra 2 days out of it? Well, maybe that's the difference as far as that goes. So,
Any of your demonstration?
What?
Is there any of your demonstration?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I got. And if nobody else has any other questions.
We appreciate you demonstrating the fire technique in the thing. And this concludes his demonstrations. I appreciate it.
I hope everybody
and what's the name
enjoyed
of your
it.
YouTube channel, if you have any?
That's Mike Denny at Appalachian Fieldcraft. It's a / Appalachian
Now
Fieldcraft.
us dumb people know how to start a fire.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Well, I mean, that, you know, that, it can do a whole lot for you. I mean, just the ashes.